Heavy Metal Scream is Rush Duels' first mini box, and it is looking okay. The decks it is meant to support appear as though they'll fall short, but several generic cards are likely to make their way into decks, especially the new bundle card, Widespread Ruin. So, should a new player spend their gems here, or are they better off with 7's new road? Let's get into the card discussion. Ghost Cyclone is definitely the biggest surprise of the set, being a spell trap removal option that sees play to this day in the physical card game. In contrast, Hammer Crush, our current spell and trap removal option, came out in the very first set and was already power crept by cards in the starter decks. If the meta shifts and we see multiple different trap cards seeing play, expect Ghost Cyclone to also be in those deck lists. This card is, of course, at its most powerful during the first turn of the game, going second, as you won't have any monsters in the graveyard and will be able to make use of that draw one secondary effect. Destroying an opposing Widespread Ruin for free is a potentially game-ending momentum shift. Remember that every trap card is a card that wasn't a monster, meaning that anytime they go ahead and set things face down, they are going to have a weaker board. Moving on to the namesake of the box, Royal Rebels Heavy Metal is a powerful card whose true power is amplified by formats where we have these spell and trap cards seeing play. This is because it is only able to destroy the lowest level monster on the opponent's field, and that means we want the opponent to only have one monster on their field. It's obviously much better if we can destroy a Dragius and then attack directly for 5,000 damage than it is to be destroying a 1,500 attack point monster and overall just being much less effective. This ability does come with one downside, and that's that you need to tribute a level 5 monster. There is a skill to help us out with that, and there's also the built-in Royal Rebels Rocker. However, this does lower the ceiling for heavy metal plays because you can't attack directly if you use Rocker's effect. The other big deck being pushed by this box are Beasts. However, I do not think Bendorbreak is a good card. It requires you to be running a ton of spell and trap cards because if they have 3 monsters on their board, you're going to need to have 3 spell and trap cards on your own field. And setting that up plus a level 7 is quite difficult. And then it makes you get rid of your spell and traps without getting to use their effect, turning them into 1,000 attack point debuffs. Ultimately, it's not that good. We do have some other solid beast cards like Silver Wolf, which becomes a 1,500 under Forest and can debuff the opponent, and Paku Paku Chu, who is like a Seahorse Carrier or Currybot for beast monsters. If anything, I would expect beasts to become kind of an engine rather than a whole deck, similar to the way we see Aqua cards being used. It's also worth noting that if you have Forest on the field, Gazelle is a 1,700 beat stick that takes no tribute. The Beast deck has Tempest Drive as a skill, but if it sees success, it's going to be on the backs of the spellcasters. Last up in the UR slots are Ancient Arise Dragon. This card is a 3,000 attack point monster that is also able to destroy a Dragius for free. Thanks to the skill, getting both Burning Blaze Dragon and Clear Ice Dragon into the graveyard is easy. Neither of these cards have particularly powerful effects, but again, thanks to the skill, both of them are able to clear out Dragius at the cost of being low attack monsters on your own turn. We already know dragons are quite a powerful archetype, thanks to Dragonic Resonance being the best deck in the game. When this box comes out, expect a ton of dragon on dragon violence as players figure out which skill or which deck is the one worth playing. Next up, let's go over the support for existing strategy. Legend Draw aggro decks are going to love Seraph of Darkness. This is a low-level monster that can simulate the effect of Torna, turning a monster like Dragius sideways if you control a high-level dark monster. With the searchable Summon Skull and 3 copies of Seven Sword Magician in most aggro decks, it will be easy to activate this and help you make bigger and safer pushes, no longer needing to worry about cards like Severing Psychic Wall, causing your Summon Skull to lose to Primogotarnas. And speaking of psychics, they get Giftarist, their own version of Seven Sword Magician. With a full field of psychics, it goes up to 3600, no graveyard setup required. We also get Speedy Performer, though this card is more likely to see play in some kind of dragon aggro deck, as the best thing you can do is boost up a Dragius and then tribute off Speedy Performer for a 1 tribute monster, like the Burning Blaze Dragon, which will then get boosted by the skill and leave you with 2 super powerful monsters on board. Ultimately, I think Giftarist is a big boost to Psychic Drive decks, though we will have to wait and see if it is enough to push them into the meta. They are also getting a new skill that can Destiny draw a Roman pick, and that might end up being the better skill to run. Moving on to Warriors, we have Piercing Samurai, which is an amazing card for the deck. It was already running multiple copies of Pierce to take advantage of Celery's ability to turn monsters into defense mode. Now, they have that for free on a monster, making it more consistent, a better card, and less likely to brick. Overall, Piercing Samurai is amazing, but that's not all. They also get Dark Ruler Battle Slash, which doubles as both a type-specific version of the barrier and also can destroy spell and trap cards on top of it. Given that Dark Arts of Celerity already has a good matchup into the most popular deck on the ladder, I would be expecting to see a lot more Gavin once these cards come out. Next up, we have a Beast Summoner, which is clearly meant to support the Bendorbreak deck. However, I think it will be more impactful in Voltcondor lists, a deck which is going to benefit for 2 reasons. First, Beast Summoner counts as 2 tributes for the summon of your ace monsters, but more importantly, we also now have playable trap cards, and that means that the Pigeon is much more likely to be live. You don't have to fill your deck with terrible cards in order to actually use the effect. Alongside the barrier as a generic trap card, we also have Music Priestess's Recital, which can negate an attack when you only have 1 monster on your field. This is actually really good at stopping opposing Dragius, as if you start with just 1 monster and you negate the first attack, it won't be able to make a second attack at all. Additionally, it will help you just overall survive and keep a monster on board, because if you have 3 monsters on board and the opponent does not have a Dragius, they are not going to be able to get to direct attacks. The one thing to consider though is that the barrier against several decks is going to be weaker than Phantom Bind, a card that we already see people don't feel great about. So the question is whether having the barrier be able to work against aggro decks is actually enough to make it playable. Because if not, and the only card we see is a Widespread Ruin, then things become a lot more rough for the metagame. Because if there's only 1 trap card worth destroying, you probably don't want to run Ghost Cyclone for it. And then if you don't have Ghost Cyclone, Widespread Ruin is just a huge blowout, and it's going to feel awful. Hopefully, these trap cards do end up making a difference and helping the game feel more interactive. Next up, we have Archfiend Summoning Flute. The name may make you think it's meant for Summon Skull, but this is going to see more play in Magician Shuffle decks. Because of how accessible these legend normal monsters are, it's not too hard to get them in the graveyard, and then the Summoning Flute can revive them. However, the only one that has an immediate payoff is Dark Magician. Since the Flute summons the monster in defense position, Dark Magic attack is live, but you're not able to do anything with a Summon Skull or Red Eyes Black Dragon. This card may also see play in Royal Rebel decks, being able to revive a high-level normal monster and help meet the requirement for heavy metal. Beetle decks are also seeing some new cards. We have Babysitter Goat and Descendant of Titans as level 1 fiends, alongside Royal Rebel's Fanatic from Roa's level ups. All of these work with King's Majesty to negate attacks and keep your Beetle safe. Unfortunately, despite also getting Paku Paku Chu, we do not have any level 1 beast monsters. If we had gotten Crying Moon Rabbit and Grilled Pangolin, the beast engine would make the Beetle go crazy. Not only would they be 1400 defenders, they would be 1600 under Forest, preventing the opponent from beating them with their own 1500 attack point monsters. And then we'd also have a really consistent tribute engine. Finally, we have the Noodle Art of Roastery, a card with a more powerful version of the effect of Elite Spice the Noodle Ninja. Alongside 2 new, relatively powerful Pyro low levels, we are going to be able to make more things happen with this deck. It is much more explosive, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure it is powerful enough. You're still relying on drawing into Elite Spice, and now Noodle Art of Roastery is kind of a brick on any turn you don't have it. And at the end of the day, I'm not entirely sure that this payoff is stronger than the consistency of just slamming down a Dragias and blowing up the opponent's board. So, let's answer the question we posed at the beginning of the video. What is the best use of gems? If you are a brand new player, I think this box falls just a bit short. I would open Seven's New Road 2 times. This gives you full playsets of all of the SR cards, and then 2 copies of the relevant boss monsters. After that, you can open this box and aim for those generic cards that are going to supplement whatever strategy you're playing. There is a small chance that Ancient Arise Dragon just ends up as a surprise heavy hitter and is the best deck, in which case, sure, this one makes more sense for a new player. But failing that, Seven's New Road has the edge. Of course, if you are not a new player and you've already opened Seven's New Road, there isn't much else to go for, so feel free to spend your gems here and try out some of these new decks. Thank you for watching.